How would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have a tech entrepreneur joining from United States. Noah, tell us, what are the 5 steps to make your first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Well, starting would be step one.
I like it.
Yeah, I've done that. Customer acquisition. That's got to be the most important thing. That's not the path I'm on. Uh, I'm in a chicken and egg nightmare. But uh, entrepreneurship. I've been on the journey and sort of meeting a lot of entrepreneurs. It's a very curiosity driven thing. It's a very connection driven thing. It's absolutely a sales driven thing. I've worked for many startups and I've seen them fail or stall because they just lost connection to their customers or product. So customer acquisition, vitally important. Uh, and then ideally, you would want to get your product from them. So what you need to do is go out and uh, find the customers, and then step three, find out what problem, not problems, problem they have that they will pay to fix that you can solve. Um, and that's where you get into the kind of messy space. There's the kind of the Steve Jobs approach, where it's like the customers don't know what they want. That is true, but they know things that they want. They just don't know what solution they want. That's where you step in. You still need to know what things that they want. Uh,
Number
and
4?
Number four, um, that's when you have to start filling it out. So this is team time. It'd be very useful to have a partner. That's definitely another thing that I should have done many many years before. Uh, but fill your gaps. Uh, one of the successful entrepreneurs that I met along the way that introduced me to my attorneys, she was actually handed her team. So she was at Harvard Business School,
Wow.
and they took a class and they had to start a company. And the company she started became highly successful, sold
Wow.
millions, and she was the initial customer. And they developed a product that unshrank wool.
Wow.
Uh, so they found the problem. They did some research and discovered that it was probably possible to solve the problem. And then they they had their team together, and so they were able to license the the science, build a product, bring it to market using the people they had. Most people will not have it quite that easy um, to build a team, but that's critical. And then I'd go with once you've got a customer product market fit in a team, um, keep getting out of bed in the morning and execute. Because if what you like is sales, which is probably true if you're an entrepreneur, not for me again, then you might get bored, or you might not be happy doing the management. But that's the other side. Um, I have to say, if your goal is only a million, you're not necessarily going to have to be good at managing people. You can be a real ass and a real micromanager and really screw everything up, and probably still make it to a million. Um, but uh, but if you don't solve those kinds of problems in leadership,
And be able to grow. Yeah.
you're going to stall out
Mm.
sooner rather than later. And the the largest fraction of the addressable market I've personally ever seen anybody like that hit was less than 1/10 of 1%.
Mhm.
So you better be addressing a very, very large market if you want to make it to 1 million.
Mm.
And yeah, like I said, I did everything wrong basically, and
Like
that
everybody, yeah.
right, yeah. Well, and also that's probably why I'm fighting with the U.S. Patent Office without having hit my first million.
Wow. If I okay, so no, but then let's go there because there is a lot of things that you have covered, yeah, building your company that I love about it. Yeah. So clearly you do know what you're talking about, and clearly you have learning the hard way. Yeah. Now these are the things in your it's very curious that in your 5 steps, yeah, you haven't mentioned raising funds or go to the or go to VC, right? So basically in your formula, what you describe is that you design a product, go and ask the market if they want to buy it, and then get good at sales. And even you said that's not me, yeah, but at least you're conscious, right, about this process, which I love, and I also agree with it 100%. Yeah, and now we're gonna, yeah. On the other hand, yeah, I understand you, yeah, because you are an engineer, you are a
Yeah,
developer, yeah, you are a tech guy, yeah. So the issue that we have in with the startup world is that we have a lot of tech engineers, right? That they get so in love about the pattern, they get so in love about the software, they get so in love about that product that they put all the time, money, and effort and energy developing that product. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Without asking the market if they are ready, if there is something that they will pay for it, if this is actually solve a problem that they are willing to solve. And then we have people that remortgage the house, that basically tech entrepreneurs, yeah, that remortgage the house, put up the saving, everything, developing this amazing patent product that will change the world, yeah. And then after you run out of funds and money, you don't even have resources to go and ask the market if this is something they can buy. So what message do you have for these entrepreneurs, Noah? Yeah, I can see it in
Yeah,
because I
exactly.
know
Yeah.
everybody
Well,
been there, so it's not like this is mostly what happened in the industry, especially when that software developers are the founders, and what they have is a software, right?
right,
Very
absolutely.
common.
Well, so you'd mentioned a couple of different things there. So product ahead of marketplace and VCs. So VCs don't help you start. VCs help you
I agree
scale.
with you.
And if your goal is to get to 1 million, that's not really where VCs that number is too small for them to care.
I agree with you.
And so
That's why
so
you didn't mention in your steps, right?
right, exactly. So a VC, the way I like to tell people, if you've got a lemonade stand that you want to turn into the next Starbucks, VCs want to help you out with that. If you have a lemonade recipe that's better than the lemonade that's on the market, VCs do not want to help you with that. They want they want a
The new
business
thing, right? The
they
new
want a
thing that nobody
business
has.
that looks like at least a functioning business that is going to die if they don't give it money so it can get bigger, that they can give some money to get bigger. And then they want to be able to give it more money so it gets bigger again. They don't want you to be able to sustain that growth. Um, and if your goal
How
is to
about
get to,
angel investors? How about
huh?
angel investors? How about seed funding? Do you think that's helpful?
Uh, it depends again entirely on what you're going for.
Maybe the first million, 0 to 1.
Yeah. So getting from 0 to 1, Eh, not really. Not unless
I agree
you're
with you. I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
yeah, not unless your end goal as part of that first million is a stepping stone to the first billion, and you're trying to become the next Apple or Amazon or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you're trying to get the first million, the outside investors aren't aren't going to do very much for that. Now, again, you
I
have
mean, might
local
give you some
network,
seed funding for development,
right?
but you are developing something that you're not asking the clients if they want to buy. Um, it's still, unless you have a little bit of traction. Um, this is an issue. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And then so the next thing, yes, it's very easy for engineers to fall in love with the technology, uh,
Tell me
and
about it. And this is expensive. This is not cheap, especially if you're building something. And if I tell you a story, I will depress you. Yeah, what people have done and the amount of resources that they have spent developing a software or a tech product. Yeah, putting 10, 100 times more resources to develop that product. And then it's a big challenge to get the
right,
product market fit because they don't want to listen. The customer, even the customer telling, I will buy this in this form. And the tech guys are saying, look, this is our thing. If you don't buy like this, I will find somebody else to buy it. I'm not going to change anything because it's expensive, because this. And they are inside that bubble that what they think they want. And then, no, let's go to theoretical here, because there is the story of Steve Jobs. Yeah, this is what I find fascinating. Yeah, so Steve Jobs was someone that, I mean, he was not a developer in the first place, but let's start from that. Yeah, it's but
I
a,
have I
a
have
little bit,
opinions on jobs. Yes,
a little bit. Yeah. So what?
I think that the correct way to think about Steve Jobs is that he was a fashion designer. I think he was the most
Very
successful
good. Very
fashion designer in human history.
Yeah.
And I think he was doing fashion in an industry where you can't tell people that you're doing fashion because it doesn't work then.
Is
Um, but that's what he was, and I think that's why Apple is recognizably not the company it was anymore, and that many of their users kind of see them as stalling because Cook is not a fashion designer, and we have examples like Chanel. There are fashion companies that manage to survive the death or retirement of their designer, and the way you do that is you turn the company over to a new designer, and modern corporate structure doesn't have the capacity to do that, and it certainly doesn't have the capacity to do that with $1 trillion.
Mm.
They're not going to find some, you know, 20-year-old with a totally new vision and say, "Hey, you steer the $2 trillion truck now. We're all going to do what you say." So I think, I think,
That's the point where I want to go. No, it's the
yeah,
point that I want to go because a tech entrepreneurs that will be listening to us. Yeah, they read the book, they open the biography of Steve Jobs. Yeah, and they might have an impression like, okay, I'm developing this software, yeah, and people don't know that they need it, so I'm gonna do like a Steve Jobs, and I will develop this. I will focus only my product, and my product is gonna be so good that everybody will come and buy it. And in my opinion, this is the exception. And the only story that we hear that in that model with that approach in the tech industry is actually Steve Jobs. And honestly, I haven't heard of anybody. Yeah. Now the other 99%, I think what they're doing is exactly the 5 steps that you describe. Yeah.
yeah,
The other 99% successful tech company, yeah. And to this podcast, right? 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 entrepreneurs that come, they're actually tech entrepreneurs, right? Successful tech entrepreneurs. And again, yeah, they end up in this podcast. Yeah, they are multi-million pound companies, and people might think like, oh, because 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 goes to Harry's podcast. It's easy to become wealthy in tech. It's easy to succeed, and nobody talk about the 98% that fail, yeah, and nobody talks about that what formula those 98% follow that fail, and it's very close to what I'm describing. Oh, I'm in love with the product. I love coding. I don't care about sales. Sales is not important. I don't care about this. This product is gonna patent. It's gonna change the world, and they get so focused in the product. And even you, for example, you said sales is not for me, but you're really aware that about sales is important. Yeah, you describe it in your
Yeah,
steps.
absolutely. I mean,
There are tech
I've worked
entrepreneurs
for
that don't want to hear about it, don't want to mention about it. They have nothing to know. I will pay very little to someone to bring me clients. This is secondary. I don't care. And then the company is failing. They don't know what to do. So no, tell me, what is the secret sauce? Yeah. What have you heard another story like Steve Jobs' approach? Or maybe I can learn something that I don't know, or real the pattern or the path to grow a
well, yeah,
company is
my
very close to
path.
what you describe in your 5 step, which
Right. My path is very idiosyncratic because one of the problems with tech is what are you selling? Uh, and intellectual property is very difficult to sell. In fact, in my case, if the patent isn't granted, which the government is breaking the law to see that it doesn't happen, uh, I'm suing them in federal court right now
so
over
no,
this.
what happened? Tell me a little bit about this. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah,
Oh
what
yeah, yeah, sure.
happened?
Well, I got an acceptance of my patent in 2020, so 4 years ago.
Wow.
And then my examiner's boss left my attorneys a voicemail saying it looks like we're going to reject that patent. Now, technically, they didn't reject the patent. There's a letter they send you to reject it. They didn't do that. They just didn't grant it after we'd applied. And then 4 months later, they sent a not a withdrawal letter, but a rejection letter uh, over over an issue that not only had we already gone over, but was basically the sort of people are less familiar with technology than they are with, say, medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you went into your doctor with a complaint and they explained that the problem was that you were dead. And you were like, I don't think I'm dead. And they're like, no, 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 you're dead. It's like, well, I think I'm going to get a different doctor now because you can't tell the difference between living and dead people.
Absolutely.
These people couldn't
So
tell the difference
basically, they
between
reject
one and
for a
two.
reason no that doesn't make sense, right?
Right. So a year later, or a little more than so 2022 we get a second acceptance.
Okay,
My attorneys get the second acceptance.
that sounds
We
good.
apply again. 3 weeks later they follow the law. This time they withdraw the acceptance, and this time for a completely different and actually opposite reason that we'd also covered. uh, and my lawyers had a conference call with the boss and the examiner, and they said, "Yeah, this is coming from on high. We don't know why this is happening. We don't agree with it, but we don't have a choice. We just cannot. We're just not allowed to do this. So you can't explain to us that this is nonsense because we know that it's nonsense. But we're not going to reverse this decision no matter what you tell us."
Wow.
So I appealed to the patent board, and they just came down with their decision in July, and they decided to only look at a very tiny part of the record, which didn't include the actual patent application that was at issue. And because the parts of the record they look at don't contain the defenses for the absurdities that are being made because they didn't look at the parts of the record that contain those defenses. They decided that that the attacks that were absurd were correct because they didn't look at the defense. And so yeah, I am now appealing that decision to the Federal District Court for the Federal Circuit in Washington, D.C., and we'll see if a judge is also going to decide that under no circumstances can this patent be allowed to be granted to me, or if it really isn't okay when the federal government violates the law and spews insane nonsense.
You're right. No, if this is your creation, at least you deserve a standard process. Yes, and when it comes to tech, yeah, I'm guessing that it's a piece of software, it's a piece of code, what you patent, right? So
More or less, yeah.
okay,
Patents have to be a bit more extensive and substantive. So for software, most software is covered under copyright, and that's perfectly sufficient. Particularly if your software is sort of large and sophisticated and private enough that it really isn't practical to reverse engineer. Here's something I would have for tech entrepreneurs. Don't do that. That's a huge pain in the ass, and your production costs are likely to kill you at some point. My software is around, well, with the necessary kind of input output pieces, 500 lines of code.
yeah. So better not to go out and sell it and have to worry about the patent, right?
Yeah, that would be great. Unfortunately, the only thing I actually could sell would be the patent. In spite of that, I have managed. It's open source overseas,
Oh,
and until the patent is granted, it's open source here in the United States as well. But I've found 4 different teams overseas that are interested in incorporating the technology in things that they're trying to do. And so that doesn't drive revenue, but I have a little bit of sales, and so that's the challenge, is that I'm sitting at an intersection of as I mentioned, sort of chicken and egg problems, where I have to get the federal government to actually obey the law in order to have a product, and then I have to sell a product that is the outcome of investigations in sort of math and economics, rather than uh, uh, personal connections and sales. So yeah, this is a rough path, but if, again, if you get into entrepreneurship not because you want to get into entrepreneurship, but because there's something that you need to do, I think it's important to understand what the skills and tools and path actually is, so that you can sort of, we're in societies, particularly in the United States, where we see entrepreneurship as essentially the only way to move ideas into the public sphere. So
absolutely.
if you want to go out and start a business and have $1 million in sales, follow the entrepreneurship path. But if you want, uh, to move the stop signs in your neighborhood so that it's safer, you're going to have to be entrepreneurial there, and the path isn't going to be a perfect fit, but you should know what it is anyway, so that wherever it is that you're on, what all the people you're dealing with think you're supposed to be, you can sort of jockey yourself into being the right kind of thing there. So I've been sort of transforming myself into a talker and a salesperson and a global networker and so on.
Amazing.
Um, and that's what's called
That's
for
what your
at this
company needs.
stage.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. I think that, no, in the end of the day, yeah, I understand 100%, yeah, what you're going through with the patent, because people evaluating the patent could be the possibility that doesn't have enough expertise in a tech space to evaluate, yeah, because is when it comes to tech is really, really specific, and you need good people that have that level of expertise. Yeah, probably that would be the case. However, I think that the with the product as it is, right? If somebody, if there is some traction, like you said, or you create a strategic partnership, yeah, and that product get traction, yeah, I think that you're not gonna worry so much about this pattern anymore, because you're gonna make it so much money that your people will be that. And remember, you always can apply worldwide. You can apply in Europe, you can apply, in other countries, unless there is something specific for United States, right? So the whole point is, why you decide to invent something unique in the tech space? How do you find this gap in the market, and how confident you were that that this software that you have developed has an amazing capability, and there is nothing out there really close
So
to
I
it?
did it by accident, which
Like
is
everybody, like all the
I
entrepreneurs.
would absolutely recommend doing it by accident.
Yeah.
I am I'm a recreational mathematician. I'm interested in computational mathematics, and I was exploring the problem space of networked communication, specifically looking for network communication that causes consensus. So sort of like the opposite of Twitter. Um,
I get it. I get it.
and so I found an approach, and it had some interesting theoretical properties. I was telling a friend about it. He asked whether or not you could use this approach to predict the stock market, and I said no, you can't, because you can't shove enough money in to pay for the information. But I was walking home from his house. I had this idea that markets actually kind of work by paying people money for information, and this is an efficient way to expend resources in order to obtain what you're looking for. So what if I could sort of turn this thing in on itself and make a marketplace out of it? And that sounded like another interesting problem to think about.
Sound
So
amazing.
I did that.
Sound
And
amazing.
once I had a
You
design
build it
together,
yourself?
huh?
You build it yourself?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said,
Wow.
you can write this up in about 500 lines of code.
Wow.
Uh, and once I'd written up the 500 lines of code, I did what's called load testing, where you basically throw a bunch of crap into the system to see how well it can cope with things. And the computer I had at the time, this was about a decade ago, could handle about half of the trade volume of the entire global economy. And
Wow. It was very powerful computer, no?
nope, nope, it was a pretty off the shelf standard laptop. It was a
Wow.
very powerful algorithm. And
Wow. The
and
algorithm is
so
very, the
that's when I
algorithm
was
is
like,
very
oh,
efficient
okay.
then. I'm
Well, this is
impressed.
better than the markets that we actually have. And and you could use it if you had one of these markets or could build one to make yourself an enormous amount of money. So I kind of knew that commodity markets existed. I did a little research, discovered that the addressable market size was in the tens of trillions of dollars, and
Wow.
that the current operators were collecting less than 0.5% of uh, their possible revenue, and that they were spending an enormous amount of their money on computer and communication infrastructure, that this system would allow those costs to reduce by factors of more than 1,000. Um,
Wow. I
and so
know
I was like,
exactly what
well,
you're talking about, because I know people that they are, doing, analyzing data from the market, and getting patterns and getting conclusions. Yeah.
Yeah.
the amount of computer that they have with and they're consuming exactly for what you described, yeah, to half size of the market. Um, we're talking about, I mean, as far as I'm aware, the people that I know that are doing this, uh, they are spending a lot in computing power.
Uh-huh.
They need more computer power. I'm telling you about rooms full of computers. Special type of computer, like very similar like this one that generate bitcoins. So there are computers that they are
Right.
processors, they have specific type processors, they are really, really high perform. Still to analyze a large volume of trades and to get some conclusion and information. I'm telling you about rooms full of computer.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
what
Yeah.
you have described to me, I'm very impressed. Yeah.
Well,
It's a
that
very, very powerful algorithm, very efficient,
that's yeah,
that
that's the
doesn't
response I had. I
consume
was like,
computer
wow,
power.
this looks like something that probably needs to get out in the world,
It's
and
amazing.
it's compelling enough even I might be able to sell it. And so that's the path. That's what got me walking down this particular road.
Okay. Okay, but in the end of the day, I think that there is clearly a need for the product. Yeah. The clearly so this especially the the people out there that they're using a lot of computer power to analyze the algorithm, yeah, which I'm aware that is something that exists because I know people that actually are doing it, so that can save energy, right? That can get a more efficient solutions um, to understand the markets. Yeah, because at the end of the day, no, you're more than a mathematician, right? So, so is this really because I am? There is something in mathematics that calls probability. Yeah,
Absolutely, yes.
so. Uh, how if you have an algorithm similar like yours, yeah, that uh, because it doesn't consume so much computer power. I mean, you describe it that you can have on your own computer. I'm shocked, yeah, because the closest thing that I heard about is they're using cloud computing, a lot of computer power to give you some results, yeah. But in your opinion, by using probabilities, do you think that you can predict not 100%, but with certain accuracy how the market is gonna behave?
So
By
this
using
isn't
mathematics?
so I think that using mathematics we can make it more efficient for all of us to be able to do that. The problem that people get
How about
confused
making
about,
money?
yes, well, so this allows you to make money by creating a market system that makes it more efficient to predict those market prices.
Exactly.
And
I
so
understand that.
so the problem that we're facing with technology and why we have so many of these enormous rooms full of computers, not just there, but also AI and retail, and there's a lot of different fields that have big rooms full of computers. Twitter, for example. Uh, the problem is that what we've mostly been using computers for is taking what are usually very primitive parts of our society and saying, okay, this part that people do, we can make computers do that. So, like Twitter is automating the ability of like schizophrenics to shout random things in public, but it's automating that so that they can shout it to everyone on the planet simultaneously. Um, I don't know why that's worth what it's worth, but whatever. But that takes enormous amounts of computing power. The flip side is that if whatever this thing that you're dealing with is actually useful, then there should be some new way for those relationships to exist to achieve the same outcome. And then that much more useful thing will solve. There's recently been a Nobel Prize that was handed out in chemistry to an AI project because they figured out protein folding. So the proteins that are in your body are these long strings of chemicals, hundreds and hundreds of chemicals long, and because of the way the amino acids work, when you stick them into cells, they scrunch and scribble up, but they scrunch and scribble up in very predictable ways or very repeated ways. And when they do that, they turn into these little micro machines that do specifically what you need. They're a blood cell, or they, move a sugar atom somewhere or something like that. Molecule, sorry. And that was one of the holy grails of biology, was sort of figuring out the formula for how these things scrunch up. But because there's hundreds of them and they are all freely rotating and they're all freely scrunching and whatnot, all the models we had for how they could scrunch up were just computationally insane. Like solving chess was trivial compared to this.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and we haven't solved chess yet.
Power then.
Right. So we threw gobs and gobs and gobs of computing power at it. And then Google had a team, and there's been some other teams since then, and they threw AI at the problem, and it was gobs of computing power, but it wasn't gobs like had been. It was a lot less than that. It was still the rooms full of computers, but it wasn't planets full of rooms full of computers. Mm-hmm. But the machine made some kind of a breakthrough. That's the thing. We don't understand what that breakthrough is, but we appear to have solved the problem. And it looks like whatever the problem actually is that the computer managed to get itself around is a lot easier than whatever we think it is, because the computer's not using an enormous amount of power to actually solve these problems now.
They managed to find the mathematical equation behind, right?
Exactly. So that to me, we have not adapted our society to the power and capacity of computing yet. And so we're still doing a lot of things. Markets are based on a lot of human needs, and they involve a lot of people kind of shouting each other and shouting over each other and shouting each other down, because frankly, that's what we need to do. But when we got machines to start doing that, well, they shout a lot faster and a lot louder than us. And so there's a lot more shouting going on, and the entire system's become much, much more noisy. But at the end of the day, what it's about is having prices that people can actually use. And so by redesigning the system to make the communication be a lot less noisy, you don't need all that processing power for all that noise anymore. Because it's not there.
100%. Look, I got a degree in chemical engineering, yeah? And then when I arrived to Spain, yeah, after finished university, it was the .com, so it was no jobs in Madrid for chemical engineering enough. But guess what? It was the .com. So we're looking for crazy for software developers. And then I go there and I said, well, I'm an engineer. And they told me, no problem. We only need your mind as an engineer. We show you code. And you will be doing programming, Java and Oracle and all this, yeah? And I did manage to develop softwares, yeah, in JavaScript. But I remember in the office, yeah, I was with these geeks, that they were very good software developers. And I remember that when we do in software, sometimes my ones will have like 20 lines, and they have like 3. And I'm like, man, how come you're solving the same problem that I'm trying to do this? I wrote 20 lines of code and you only have 3. How? So I realized that day that, when number one, that I was a very bad software developer. I was getting by, but, I was getting paid. And everybody else saw that I was amazing, but the people that were writing the code hand to hand to me, I was looking at these people, yeah, and I said, man, these people are brilliant, right? So the whole point is that there is always a very efficient way, a more efficient way to, we can call it write less code, find the right algorithm. So then the machine suffer less, right? Because with my 20 line of codes, the thing had to read all this 20 line of code to actually execute something. where my other colleague has only 3, right?
Right. Yeah, I've got a story about that. So again, I have a similar kind of thing. I got into the dot coms after studying nuclear engineering, not jobs in that. But sometimes the problem has to be put to you right. So I was working for a company once, and we had this system that produced a lot of logs, and the logs had variables in them, and the variables weren't interpolated. So you didn't know what the value that the variable had in the log was. And so I was chatting with another guy on the team, and we were like, it'd be great if these logs were more readable, that they contained the variable sort of written out. And we were like, yeah, that sounds like a decent project. And we had a new guy on the team, and so we kind of turned our heads and was like, hey, new guy, come on over here. This something like this, maybe this kind of an approach would work. I don't know. Go check it out. And so he goes off, and we've got a test server, so he kind of monopolizes the test server for a week, and he tries out a few things, and he gets it all together, and he gets it done. And again, it was about a page of code, so it was a little bit more than 20 lines, but not
Wow.
much. And he's got it tested, and so it's review time. So I'm over at his desk now. It's a week later. I'm looking over his shoulder, and he's like, "This is how the test thing works." And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there might be a simple way to do this. And so we're doing the review, and I was like, okay, this is very cool. No reflection on you,
It
but
works, it works, but
let's just try this. And I write a single line of code using this thing called regular expressions, and we run it, and it works. And, and it's like, and
tell me
he
about
was very
it.
he was
Don't
very
I see with my own
kind of,
eyes, so
yeah.
so but then no, look, on the other hand, I think that, the other day in this very podcast, a tech entrepreneur was sharing a story with me and said, Harry, this is a story of one guy that want to do his game, yeah, a triple A game, and then you know what? He started to do his game. He had this vision for this game, but at the end of the day, he couldn't manage to sell the game. So and he didn't. He couldn't manage to pull this off. But you know what? He got by developing this game. He got the way that the images was processed for the game, yeah, and then he sold it to Yahoo and make a lot of money, yeah. So sometimes he has the idea in the game, but in the process of building that, something collateral was built in order to achieve this goal, and the guy sold this piece to Yahoo and make a lot of money, and then after he took all this money, I said, okay, with this money, I'm gonna do the game. And they try to do the game again, again, and again. And once again, the game didn't took off, and he said to his investor, look, this is what we're gonna do. We designed this piece of software to communicate with our staffs and everything. The rest of the money that you guys give me, let's put it in this, because the game is not gonna take off, and this tool was Slack, so what I'm trying to share with you is that in that process, no, maybe behind your algorithm, or behind what you created, is a way of thinking, yeah, of how to make the things efficient, right? And probably that could be an alternative stream of income for your company, right? Like, okay, problems that they already solved, yeah. How can we solve them more effective? Because the planet and are at the moment, while you hear about quantum computing and taking computing to Mars and putting in the Arctic, the world is heading to some looking more for computer power, yeah, to process this large thing. And I agree with you that there is a more efficient way to solve those problems, yeah. We don't need so much computer power as we think we need, and therefore we don't need to use so much electricity, which the planet cannot afford. More consumption of electricity and resources, and like you said, the solution that I hear, let's take computer to Mars, let's take computer to the Antarctic, Like, nobody knows, what to do with this, with the and how to find the energy to run all these machines. I think that you're up to something, yeah, and keep going, yeah. I think that you're brilliant, yeah. You're a brilliant engineer, yeah, a brilliant engineer that understand that it has to become a salesperson if he want to thrive. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
not too many people go there. Not too many tech people. I know a lot of tech people, yeah, that they prefer to don't do don't, that is too much for them, that they prefer to let go and
Sure.
to quit. Yeah.
Well,
So you don't
sales
look
is
like quitting to me. So
right.
I'm happy to see you embracing something that, of course, um, is is a huge challenge, yeah, for you talking to people and for you to go out there and to talk about your product. But you're not an engineer anymore. You're an entrepreneur,
Right.
an
Well, yeah,
idea.
sales is my bugbear, but like I'm my lawyer now. You know, I
Yeah, an entrepreneur. You need to learn how to do everything.
right. Even during the early patent, I was reading the stuff that was coming in. I was doing the sort of the heavy lifting on the logical argument side of things and explaining to my attorneys why what
That's
they were
what I'm gonna
saying was
take. No, yeah,
nonsense. So
welcome to
yeah,
my world. Yeah, welcome to my world. Yeah, as you are an entrepreneur, you are in business. You have to sort to yourself everything.
that's right. You got to be the accountant, the lawyer,
Absolutely.
the salesperson, and once that team comes together, once those sales coming into the door, that's when you can take the part of the job that you're not the greatest at. Um,
Exactly.
and
And
ideally, what
it's,
you discover is it's going to be every part of the job.
yeah.
You're not going to be the greatest at any of them.
Tell me about it. Yeah, it was one of my business, the property business. We managed to save 5 million, and one day I arrived to the office, and the team told me, "Harry, we don't need you. Go home.
Well, I mean, I
We can run all this without you." And it
I,
was
I worked
amazing. It was
I
amazing
worked as
after
yeah,
dealing with
sure.
those struggles.
I worked a summer in an ice cream shop, local shop, great ice cream. Guy who ran it, was there every day. And the rule was don't do anything the way Tony does it. There's a way to do everything. You're going to learn the way to do it. You're going to do it that way. You're going to see Tony do stuff. That's what Tony does. You don't do anything the way he does it. You do it right. And
Exactly. So now, if people want to learn more about your work, about what you're doing, how can they find you?
I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm Noah Healy, and it's just Noah-Healy because I'm the oldest Noah Healy in the world, apparently. Um, uh, you can reach out to me personally, noahphealy@yahoo.com. I read that regularly. And there's a website, Coordisc, Coordisc. There's a white paper on download. There's a few videos up on my YouTube channel, Nikki Haflinger, that explain how this works. You can find the patent. I've done a couple hundred episodes of podcasts, so Noah Healy
Wow.
podcast will bring up pages on Google or Bing or whatever search engine you use to hear more about me talking about this stuff.
Thank you so much, Noah, for this broadcast. Have been amazing. And for you following this broadcast, see you in our next episode of Unstoppable. How brave entrepreneurs like Noah that keep fighting to grow the company. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.